So Elisa must be on.
Okay.
Joker shower. Good, thank you.
So just so you know, you're already live.
Three days. Yeah.
Yeah, I just.
Okay.
Hey, just so you guys know, your mic's live right now.
I didn't hear what you said. I don't know if you said on now.
Do you want me to do something so that's not the case? So this is the person of our meetings.
Hi, is it Lisa? Kwame, I just want to let you know to watch for Carl Frankel, Alderman Frankel, who'll be joining us online.
Okay, I don't see him yet, but I'll keep an eye out.
Okay, can you send him the link?
I just did.
Okay, awesome. You're great. Thank you.
Right.
We'll be starting in a minute. Thank you.
Okay.
There he is.
There he is.
And he's zooming. Camera was zooming in.
Good evening. This is Wednesday, August 18th, Laws and Rules meeting. 16th, Laws and Rules. I am Alderwoman Michelle Hirsch. I'm sitting in for Alderwoman Worthington. It's 6:37. I'm calling this meeting to order. In chambers, we have Alderman Rennie Scott Childress, Alderwoman Sarah Pasty. On Zoom, we have Alderman Carl Frankel. And here in chambers, we also have Corporation Counsel Barbara Graves Toller and Jonathan Clark. Sorry.
Do we want him here in person? No. Does Carl have to be here in person to vote? We've got a quorum in person, right?
Although under the council's rules, if you didn't ask for permission within the designated timeframe, that I'm not Andrea, but I think in general, she's required that information within a certain time. So it's up to the chair to make that determination.
So
The question is, are you going to have any things to vote on? If not, then you can stay home. If there are, then you should come in.
yeah, I mean, there's one potential thing.
Yeah, there's one potential thing we might vote on, so if you could jet over here, that'd be great. Okay, bye. He'll be here in 7 minutes.
Okay.
So Julie, you're first on the agenda, so your presentation. For those at home, first up on the agenda is the community preservation plan update from our environmental educator and sustainability coordinator, Julie Noble.
Kwame, is it okay if I share my screen?
Are you okay if I share my screen?
Yeah, just give me a minute. I'll set you up as a co-host.
Thanks.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, you should be good now.
Thank you. So I'm Julie Noble, the sustainability coordinator for the city, for you know, to be here. For the past 5 to 10 years, we've been working on land use preservation plans for the city of Kingston. starting with the natural resources inventory, and going towards the open space plan, and the next logical step being this plan, which is the community preservation plan. All three plans have been funded by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, and I was project manager on all three. And this latest community preservation plan, and my intent today, is to present this to you all. The long-term intent is adoption. Whether that move forward tonight or not will be up to you all, but I'm here to just present it to you. And I'm going to briefly go through the presentation that was done by our consultant. I won't go through it at length, but I will basically go over the information that was shared. Let me share my screen. It's important first. Okay. So the community preservation plan was done by a consultant, media planning and design, with a sub of Upstate GIS. Both of those consultants also did our open space plan. So this is essentially a continuous process from that moving forward. As I mentioned, it was funded by the EDC. And just as a reference, this presentation was given on January 12th, 2023. That is when the plan was done. It was ultimately completed in February after a public comment period. I decided to wait, let me preface this with, I did put it as an agenda item on the Common Council in March, but before it made it out, I did submit it as a communication. Before it made it out, I did redact that communication. I wanted to wait until the zoning process was completed, since there's implications for zoning. And so now that the zoning process is completed, I can't. This project was worked on by myself and Emily Flynn from the Health and Wellness Department with BN Planning and Upstate GIS, as I mentioned. And we had a large project advisory committee, which included folks from the Farm Hub, our very own Alderperson Frankel, folks from my office, the Conservation Advisory Council, Health and Wellness, the Land Trust, DEC, the YMCA Farm Project, Climate Smart Kingston Commission, Heritage Area and Landmarks, City Hudson River Watershed Alliance, Planning Department, and others. So what is Community Preservation Plan? The Community Preservation Act of 2019 allowed folks in Ulster County municipalities to adopt a plan and ultimately create, if achieved through referendum, a community preservation fund. Community Preservation Act established throughout in Ulster County, not all counties have this in our state, but ours does. It prescribes what a community preservation plan can be, what it can do, and how it can be turned into a fund, and how that fund is prescribed is how it can be used moving forward. So a community preservation plan can be used for identifying priorities, for parks and nature preserves, land of exceptional value, scenic value, wetlands, aquifers and recharge areas, rare or endangered habitats or unique and threatened ecosystems, public access to land for recreational use, rivers, streams, waterways, wetlands and shorelines, historic places and properties, and viable agricultural lands. It cannot be used, and this is the key. The fund, the plan, none of it can be used for housing, none of it can be used for sewer and stormwater infrastructure improvements, and none of it can be used for road infrastructure improvements, and many other things. This is by prescription by the state legislation. So ultimately, I'm going to be seeking, and others are going to be seeking to create a fund, and that fund will not be able to be used for any of these things. That being said, on a state level, there is a push for the fund to be used for housing, but that is not the case yet. Right now, it can't be used for that at all. But right now, we're just talking about the plan. So what is in a plan? And again, this is prescriptive, but based on the act. This one is customized to our city's resources and goals, but it basically takes each individual parcel in the city of Kingston, every single parcel we have, and it gives it a score. And that score is based on a priority rating system that I'm gonna go through in a second. And then it basically prescribes for those with any score of anything, even one, there are multiple things you can do to protect that property with the landowner's willing permission. That's the bottom line of it all. So why do we do this? It helps us build local resiliency, it helps us plan for the future and implement our open space plan's goals. So this takes our open space plan, which was visionary, and takes it to the parcel level. We knew this was gonna be the next step. To protect our urban forests, to protect our water quality, support urban agriculture, and increase recreational areas, and include environmental justice. So what's the difference? As I mentioned, the open space plan has flexible requirements, it's more visionary. The priorities are combined over multiple parcels. So I don't have our open space plan map here, but it was like this whole area, we will conserve land. This whole space we'll put in a trail somewhere. This space we'll do a park. This is, you could say, where's my house on here and what color is it and what priority is it? Open space plans in general cannot be funded through a community preservation fund, should be set up. This is what would be funded by a fund if that happens in our city. Oh, here's our open space map. So this again is our open space map. It's very visionary. It's kind of like we look at the garden generally in this space, but it got us closer to where we are here. How did we get here? Through this process, we did an online survey, which 200 people responded to. We had an Engage Kingston website, which is still up. We had an online mapping tool, which people could go in and, tell us if we missed anything, public meetings, advisory committee meetings. First public meeting where we did some mapping. That was held here at City Hall back in the summer of last year. Some results from the survey, asking folks what they were interested in prioritizing. They want to prioritize everything, some parks, ecological stormwater management areas, viable ag land, floodplains, rec trails, open space, everything. It was important, which is great, but we still needed to rank them. And so what did that look like? Inside of this plan, you will see the ranking, and that is not in the middle. 16. 16. Look at that. What do you mean?
At least, I don't know.
Oh, 16. Is that a chart? Yeah. It's a chart, yeah. So,
The pages
yes, they're in the,
Oh, they are.
in the graph. Okay, you can see them. So, what you're seeing is the priority, and so the way that this works, this was not subjective. It's an objective process. So, what was subjective was setting up this point system. So the features, like, basically what the process we went through was for each parcel, we went through and said, okay, does this parcel, does 101 Wilson Avenue have a DEC wetland or a regulated buffer? No, so just get 3 points. Does it have a national wetland inventory wetland? No, 0 points. Does it have, surface water? No. Does it have a floodplain? No. Is there a vernal pool? No. Is there active farmland? Not anymore. Going through this whole process for each parcel. Is it biologically important? Is it, does it have any unfragmented forests? Does it have submerged aquatic vegetation? Is it an existing park? Does it need a park? Meaning, is it greater than a half mile to the nearest park? Is it an existing or planned trail? So you can see the different prioritizations. From there, every parcel was given 0 and up to a max, which we found was 30 points. In order to qualify for any future funding, a parcel would need to have 1 point only. It doesn't matter if it has 30, 24, 1, 16, whatever, as long as it has at least 1. So when you're looking at our map, you can see.
A large oats.
I'm talking about the community preservation plan. Right now we're here. So you can see that. Wait, what am I? This is island. What did I pass out to you all? Is the one that I passed out to you all say parcel prioritization on it, or does it say
Ecological
something else?
resource parcel prioritization.
I gave you all very specific maps for specific categories. I'm going to actually give you the full ultimate. And actually, if you would hand me those back, I will,
Is that different from the ones in?
the one in, no, it is not. It is just,
you want back the ones.
I'll take one that I gave you. So what I did hand you was, if you wanted to just see the parcels that had ecological resources, that's this. You just want to see the parcels that have water or wetland resources, that's this. This one has ag value.
Okay,
No,
so which one are we looking at?
so now you're looking at the composite. Which, oh, I didn't give you, so there's that. Okay, so the composite, which is the map you're looking at here, then takes all of that criteria that we just talked about and says, okay, well, if it has 3 points from wetlands and 4 points from forest and 2 points from ag or whatever it is, then it becomes darker in color. The darker it is, the more ecological value. And in this case, if the committee that we're moving forward this process, we're looking at how to prioritize, the theory could be go through the darkest parcels first. However, based on the funding itself, the funding mechanism itself, a parcel needs to nearly only have 1 point only in order to be eligible for the exact same funding as the parcels that have 30 points. So that means if you have a parcel in, we can look on Elmendorf Street, and those parcels there have an aquifer underneath them, and they have ag land previously, or soils that are good for agriculture. Those parcels generally in this case, have the same eligibility for the funding as these darker parcels on the outside. Okay? So, we took into consideration the zoning, and that's why I wanted to take a moment to bring this all together, but the zoning tip generally kind of overlays with this when we took into consideration the natural areas, the conservation areas, and that sort of thing. So that creates this composite map, which I just went over. The scores.
What was Kingston's average?
No idea.
Oh.
No idea what the average is. So then what happens is this plan that I gave you articulates what can we do with this land if we wanted to do some conservation. There's all different forms of conservation measures that can be taken, from tax abatements and incentives, using site plan review to give priority, instituting stormwater management practices, utilizing the CAC, landmarks, and heritage to a review process, or giving them the authority to help to utilize the funding. Same with the tree commission, utilizing the zoning law to give incentives or advantages. Again, more about zoning, and then there's different acquisition, like fee simple acquisition, just literally taking funding and purchasing land. Conservation easements can be used, purchases of development rights, transfer of development rights, overlay districts, all different tools to, if the city establishes the fund, to then work with a willing landowner to preserve these lands. We've moved also forward with, we could adopt this plan. We could move forward with the other local laws that I'll get to in a second. We could establish a fund, and we could never invest any of it in any of this. We could never have a willing landowner. Every single landowner could say, I don't want to conserve my land at all. I don't want to do anything with it. I don't want to give it to you. I don't want to put an easement on it. I don't want to do anything. That could be the case. None of it would be mandatory. So if someone looks at this and says, oh my gosh, my parcel is really, really red. It may be. That means your parcel has a lot of objective value to it when looked through this lens. Does it mean that we're going to do anything to you or with you? Not unless you're willing. So this said the draft plan is going to be finalized for review and adoption by the Common Council. And so now I'm getting to what that part is. In order to take a plan, well, the Community Preservation Act establishes that there are 3 local laws that the local legislative body must pass in order for it to go into effect. The first is the adoption of the plan itself, which will require seeker process. typically a type 1 action, but it will require going through seeker. That's adoption of the plan. The second local law, and this doesn't have to necessarily be sequential, they'll have at the same time, they probably won't. The second local law would be to establish real estate transfer tax. The real estate transfer tax is such that when properties are sold, a percentage of that sale would go into this fund. By referendum, the community has to vote what that percentage of tax is and what threshold the sale is. So if it's $250,000, everything less than that, there's no fund applied. Maybe it's $350,000, everything less than that, there's no fund applied. Whatever it is, that is voted on by referendum. The percentage of the tax is voted on by referendum. As a reference, New Paltz, Warwick, Red Hook, multiple other communities in our area have done this, and their tax levels right now are between like 1% and 2%. So it's like 1%, 1.5%, 2%.
Would that mean if a property was say $500,000, but it was capped at 250, that 1% would be on the 250 differential or on the whole 500? Do you have any know?
That's a good question that I don't know. I think the answer is that the threshold is just the value of that, like the 250 is, if it's above 250, it's subject to the entire tax for the whole amount. Any house that's sold for less than $250,000 wouldn't be subject to the fund.
That would be optional. We could craft a referendum that says the tax will kick in at the threshold.
Yeah. So the laws again, one is adopting the plan. That does not have to go to referendum. That is done as a local law by the Common Council. The second is establishing the real estate transfer tax, and that also establishes a community preservation board. And the board is responsible for determining, once the funds are brought in, how the funds are spent. Only being able to spend the funds on any parcel with one. And then the third is the percentage of the tax. So one is the tax, establishing the tax, establishing the plan, establishing the tax, what is the tax? So those are the three local laws. In order to get there, every other community, ours included, would do this, but every other community has gone out to the public to say, do you want this pre-referendum? Do you want? If we were to do it, what percentage do you think would be appropriate? And do a statistically relevant survey of the community to understand how this would work. That all being said, my involvement has to stop after basically today. Not because I want to, but because what I've done thus far is able to be done by a municipal employee. Moving forward from that would be advocacy for a referendum, which a municipal employee cannot do. So the Kingston Land Trust has already committed to being the partner and doing all of the survey work, and doing a campaign around the whole process to go out to the vote. We didn't do it this year, and if we couldn't get it in, we would have to actually get it to the Board of Election by August 4th or whatever to get on the referendum for November. So at the very earliest, this would only be able to be voted on at the very earliest by next November. And so I can't be part of that. None of our municipal government folks can be involved in the advocacy, the campaigning, the promotion of it, only education. And in this case, I'm educating you all about the plan, but I'm not sitting here and advocating for the community or anything to do it. Whether they choose to do it or not will be up to the world. So I went through that. Public referendum would allow Kingston voters to decide whether to approve the established fund. It would come from real estate transfer tax, and it would not blanket increase taxes at all. It wouldn't increase taxes at all for residents unless they were transferring a property. And so this is not everyone gets a tax. This is you sell your home to another person, that other person pays the buyer. Okay. And it's in a arguably similar way as their rec trust fund. So the rec trust fund is like an additional fee that's added on for certain amount of units, and some, if you don't. Yeah.
So it's the buyer who bears this cost, you said?
Correct,
They would just add to their total purchase cost of the property.
correct.
So I think it said in here, it was the median, it was any price above the median sale price for Ulster County?
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, so that is already established. The
Okay.
percentage is what we can determine, so yes, you're right. No, no, no,
okay,
no.
and so then how do we get like ranges, right? It's not gonna be just, I don't know, of a kind of property, like you're gonna have property that could be, have a house on it or not have a house on it, so how is that gonna be determined, like the differences? Do you-
That's a good question. There's a lot of questions about the actual real estate transfer tax legislation that I don't know yet. But are all absolutely prescribed by the law.
Is that something John Tui would know, or
So can you say, ask the question?
like, is the real estate tax, like all those questions that we could have about real estate tax and those numbers?
Yeah.
Is that something John Tui would know? Or
Yeah,
Mark
so-
Gallagher, or?
Before we were to get to like anywhere near you all voting, because you would have to pass a local law for the real estate transfer tax as well. Before we did any of that, the land trust and or I, however the group shakes out, would gather all that information. So it would be like, this is the average that we have in the city, this is how many homes this would impact. If we were to have done this for the last 10 years, this is how much money we would have made in a fund. Like, I know that New Paltz has done it for like a year and they've made over $1 million on the process. But they also have significantly more open space, it's very unique for an urban area for us to be doing this process. But as you can see, we have some large parcels and so data wise, there would be an incredible amount of work that would have to be pulled together for the campaign to just create talking points for the community, to create convincing points for you all, justification. I don't have any of that yet, that work hasn't been done yet.
And is that work that you're allowed to do as a municipal employee or no? Because you're not advocating for anything. This is just information.
Right, so like gathering the information about sales, past sales is subjective, right? So I'm sure I can work on that part. That part, I think I would probably defer to Barbara on. But, it is of course, I don't want to overstep at all. The land trust is absolutely like, we're on this, we're totally behind it, so. Yeah, not really sure.
Because we're not at that point.
Yeah, we're not there. So anyway, that's the end of my slides, and that is basically the bottom line. I came here tonight to bring this forward to you all. I didn't give you a committee report. I didn't necessarily think that anything would move forward tonight, but I wanted to have you have heard about it and know about what's going on. And if you wanted to make it, you pass a resolution to adopt it, but ultimately that wouldn't do anything until you did a local law. Obviously, I understand that if you haven't gone online to look at it, then this may be the first time you're looking at it. And as I mentioned before, it would be probably likely that the process would be that the plan would be adopted first, and then the process would, should you adopt the plan, then that would kind of give the land trust the go-ahead to go out to the community and do the surveying and get other people's temperature on the real estate transfer tax and all that. If the council isn't even interested in adopting it, then none of that would happen at all, so. But it could all happen simultaneously. You could say, go ahead and do the survey, let's see what people think, and I just didn't want them to go ahead and do that yet, because it's gonna cost a significant amount of money for them to do any kind of significant, statistically significant survey and campaign.
On page 26, section 6. So I appreciate that you waited to see what happened with new zoning. But does that section, which is about zoning, does that reflect the new zoning plan?
Yes, so the entire plan reflects, whatever the latest version was as of February, which I think was a pretty consistent version with what was happening in the end. So although the processes were happening simultaneously, it was the understanding that I didn't know when zoning was gonna be done, and we didn't wanna wait the whole time to start this process, so it kind of happened simultaneously. But I did keep my, consultants connected with the process, so they incorporated the zoning the whole time.
And so, if I understood you correctly, this does not commit the city to spend the money in the sense that if no property owner ever comes to the city and says they want some kind of use of it. So what happens if nobody ever tries to access the money? What happens to that money?
That is a good question. That I do not really answer.
Okay, big party. What, I saw, for instance, you said the possibility of there's like stormwater, some other issues like that. Is it possible for the city to use the money for some of its own properties?
Good question. So, the short answer to that is no.
Okay,
10% of it can be used for stewardship. And stewardship, I think, is things like management, but it cannot be used for city parcels. So I think we specifically called out the city parcels, which is blue on this map,
okay,
for things that cannot be used for.
all right. And then, do you remember the community emergency response training that Maria Mon had brought up?
Yes.
So I was wondering if that related to anything here, like stormwater management. That's one of the big emergencies that we're having these days. So I was wondering if there would be a way, whether that kind of program, that kind of training could be part of this plan, or, I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that either.
Okay,
I do know that I have spoken at length actually with, SIDO, Chief Ray, and also the, county, Michael Madison, the emergency management folks about CERT. So we have talked extensively about it, but I don't know if it'll apply here.
okay, great. And then, okay. Oh, and then the last question is there any relation or any way that this, in my look through this, I didn't see a reference to the recently passed Rights of the River legislation that we had?
Definitely not,
No.
because this was done in January and that didn't happen until the summer.
Yeah, please. Okay, all right, thanks. I personally think this is a great plan, and I would be happy to make a motion if other people are supportive.
I am theoretically supportive and practically,
Okay,
because I came in halfway through and I missed that first half of the presentation. So there's just things I don't know, so I'm a little uncomfortable voting in favor because I believe in Julie.
okay.
So I have a question. If we were to say, let's go ahead and adopt this, what obligations does that, or what does that sort of set in motion if we were to do that?
Sure, so the first part, adopting the plan, would require going through seeker type, to determine if it has any, a positive or negative significance. And then to, going through the standard local law process, you could adopt this plan by local law and do nothing else. You could just say, okay, we have a community preservation plan, and never move forward with the fund. And we absolutely could still use it to do whatever we wanted to. We could still, the information is still as relevant.
It's valid in guiding the
Yes.
decisions that are made in the future.
Absolutely. You could, mayor could create a community preservation committee. They could say, these are our priorities, find money where you can. Which could need to be the case anyway. I mean, there's lots of other places where also you could pass a plan and it can sit on a shelf. There's no legal. You could do nothing, absolutely nothing, and you could pass one of the laws and do absolutely nothing after that. You can pass, if you pass all three and it goes to referendum, I think that might probably establish the fund. This would be a referendum to establish such.
Right.
I don't know the answer to what happens if you start holding money and nobody wants to do anything with it. I don't know the answer to that. That's a great question. And I haven't thought of, because I just assumed that would never happen, but.
And I would assume that most likely there will be people who will want to do something, but
Yes.
So,
So I guess for tonight, you could say, let's sleep on it. You could say, come back in a couple of months or next month. You could say, you know, we want to, I guess what, Jonathan, we've talked about this, right? The first, if they were going to move forward with the adoption of the local law, what would be the first step that they would need to do if they were to do that tonight? I think,
I would have to read the specifics of this to get the exact timeline. It's been a while since I've
right,
looked at how that shakes out.
okay.
But
But I probably have to come back with the secret documentation.
yes,
Right, okay.
so I'm fully in support of this passing, but just not tonight, like, just, I feel like it's kind of new to the council and committee, and just like, it's summer, and everyone is really a little distracted and not all present, and all, like, a lot of our councils just, you know, coming on board and getting up to speed, so my feeling, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it one more month wouldn't, since you've already,
Yeah, there's,
okay,
I mean, in terms of timeline, again, like, if I didn't come to you all in like February or March, it wasn't going to get on this year's referendum.
Right.
Like, if we went through the whole process, but at this point now, since it's, even if we were to move through the process, we would just have to adopt or finalize the local laws as a whole package by August of next year. The whole survey process would probably only take a month, like the campaign for them would probably take like a month, right? So we still have plenty of time. I want to say plenty, like you don't call me back for 6 months, but enough time.
right.
But what I didn't want to do is have the first time I came to you, be demanding the local laws be adopted the night I got there, right? So this is, in my eyes, this was just a, hey, FYI, we're doing this. If you choose to move something forward tonight, that's faster than I expected. So, but I think I would like it to be on your radar, and I don't know how you want me to move forward with it, if you want me to pull together the secret documentation, or,
Yeah, for next month.
yes.
Yeah, that would be good. And can we get a copy, a color copy to go in everyone's mailbox?
Printed?
Yes.
Yep.
so I have a procedural question, just because I'm new. Now, if we were to vote to adopt it tonight, does it then need to go to the common council as a whole?
Mhm.
So in other words, it would go from here as a recommendation to be voted on at the next meeting.
So that make it too soon for this.
That's sort of why, yeah.
So is there a way you want me to bring the rest of the council up to speed? Or is everyone responsible for bringing themselves up to speed if we're not on a committee?
I think putting in devices is the start.
Yeah. And then,
I could also send around this presentation.
yeah, we can.
Yeah,
that's fine.
that'd be great.
send an email to everybody, sort of saying, do today.
And a link to where you can find it, because I did see it online also.
Yes, all of this,
Yeah, it's all.
everything that I've showed you and more is all on Engage Jason. So all the presentations, the priority list, which I have, it's like 100 pages, but we have it all down by parcel. So if you want to look at like, wow, the top ranked parcel is this, or if you want to just look up your address and see how many points your address has. Like, okay, you can do that.
And then we can like find out information on the other, so it's New Paltz
Yes.
and Warwick, and who else?
Let's see. New Paltz, Warwick, and Red Hook, and that was as of like February, so I didn't know there were more going through it this year. Phillipstown is going through the process this year. I actually have been participating for about 3 years on a monthly call with Scenic Hudson for communities around the region that are working on community preservation plans. Okay, so then I have some take homes and I will submit a communication for September.
Great. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, this looks great, by the way.
Yeah.
It's actually very exciting to see.
Yeah. That's great, thank you.
Bigger density.
Yeah, but yeah.
Awesome. All right, next on the agenda is, was tabled from last month, which is a communication from Barbara Grace Pollard concerning vacant property and foreclosure issues.
Okay. I'll let you learn this one too. So, thank you for bringing this back on. This, sort of like Julie, we want to start a conversation on kind of broad and multifaceted set of recommendations, but not necessarily look to have any vote tonight. In broad strokes, the goals that I hope over the next couple of months that we work towards are strengthening our overall zoning code enforcement. And that's for,
You start the meeting out there, you guys out there.
and that is for a number of purposes. One, we have a new zoning code and it has some really strong fees, fines, penalties, requirements. And so in order to achieve the goals of that code, we have to make sure that there is robust enforcement. And particularly on the issue of short-term rentals, I think you've all seen where BARTEC has been circulating. And so one of the goals is to make sure that that registry and everything else associated with it is properly enforced. There's also the issue of wanting to improve the way that we address vacant and abandoned properties that pose or may pose public safety concerns. And then I guess the third broad issue, and we're only going to go this a little bit tonight, but we need to better account for costs that are associated with properties that's often conduct in tax foreclosure. As you know, our goal has always been, part of the council's approved disposition policy. Our goal is to, whenever possible, swiftly move properties that have been taken in foreclosure back onto the market, ideally in an affordable housing as a source of additional affordable housing. And in doing that, we've often just done whatever it took to kind of move those properties along and, address, say, even a lack of maintenance. But for a number of reasons, we need to be more precise and meticulous in accounting for the types of expenditures that are associated with all of that work. So we're not going to get necessarily to that part tonight, but focusing on the first two items, we've been thinking a lot about ways to strengthen the overall enforcement culture. There are penalties that our building and safety department has imposed over the years. We know that, and they do a good job of responding to a variety of issues, but the goal is to, particularly in light of the code changes, to do more and to do it more consistently. And that's a collective and we need to do better, including my office. You'll see in some of the draft language that was circulated for tonight, there are a couple of places where the recommendations that we're making would help to place, really shift some more obligations onto the Office of Corporation Counsel to assist the buildings department to ensure that even small things, I think this is more in the 179 recommended changes. There are even places where our code is currently written that says buildings department should file such and such document in the court. That seems more naturally, given the work we're already doing, that my office would do that as opposed to putting that on the shoulders of someone in the buildings department. There also is another place where we recommend bringing issues, questions or challenges, hearings on violations that have been issued to the Office of Corporation Counsel for additional review, as opposed to going back to the same department that issued your violation, to just say, look at it again, kind of allowing for another fresh set of eyes and maybe some additional documentation to be submitted by the property owner. So that's part of the goal of shifting the enforcement culture. There's also some streamlining. We've talked about that before, where Matt has been working with Steve. Matt in my office has worked with Steve Knox to try and create some more forms, checklists in order to really make it more efficient and easier to go about issuing violations and then going into city court as needed or if needed. And so we want to improve that process as well. So those are kind of the big picture talking points, but there are some concrete issues on chapter 178 and 179 of the code that I think I might have left this kind of, no, just this one. That we're going to talk through. Matt had focused mostly on the chapter 178 recommended changes, and I'll go over just some highlights from that, and then ask Jonathan to talk about 179. So most of the recommended changes are pretty minor, and they aim to update the language in the current code to align with even things like some position title changes in the building department. Again, I already talked about the unsafe building determination appeal process, which would bring a fresh set of eyes. And I think that sort of sums up the changes for 178, if you want to talk about a couple of the changes for 179.
Yeah, so as Barbara mentioned, the stuff in 178 is really fairly minor, a lot of kind of administrative changes of that sort. Some of the more substantive stuff is happening in 179, which covers up vacant property requirements. So I'm just going to step through a couple of the more substantial changes that we're recommending at this stage. So again, there are a number of these small changes that are just kind of aligning the language with current usage within the city, with the building department, but also with 178 covering unsafe buildings, because in a lot of ways we envision these two statutes working together, looking at unsafe buildings, also vacant buildings, because it addresses on or touches on some similar concerns. But one area that we did identify as really requiring some additional clarity based on our internal conversations, our conversation with Steve Knox, was that our current code really did not define what is meant for a building to be unoccupied. And this was actually leading to some practical issues, particularly looking at sort of legal occupancies. So cases where a building may not be legally occupied, properly maintained, but there are people who are physically living there. So we wanted to have some sort of clarity in our code on that point. So we've added a definition of what it actually means to be unoccupied at the beginning of this section. Another fairly brief change, but actually with some practical effect. Previously, we just said that a vacant building is one that's unoccupied for more than 90 days. There's some ambiguity there, though, because that's not saying whether those are 90 consecutive days, 90 days out of some time period, and that leads to concern if you're looking at some sort of pop-up transient use. So if you've got some vacant building that's sitting empty for years and years, and someone comes in and uses this for a day or two, we don't want that to suddenly not be vacant property anymore. So we're recommending that we say 90 days, but out of the preceding 6 months. Then moving ahead, really one of the larger changes that we're looking at here is adding more concrete requirements for how a vacant property needs to be sealed and secure. Again, this goes back and touches sort of on these general public safety concerns of having these properties not be accessible to the general public, but also gets back to this legal occupancy issue. And additionally, it aligns us with state law definitions of abandonment, which trigger certain trigger certain additional statutes, ranging from registration to statutes that would theoretically allow municipalities to take title. But these align with the state law definition and makes it sort of more cohesive how our code intersects with state law. So we have clear standards here, but it's also preserving a fair amount of discretion where Building safety officials within the building department determine whether or not that sort of ceiling is required. But once it is required, we have fairly concrete suggestions on what that actually looks like. Then the final thing that I would just want to draw your attention to now, and this is still very much a work in progress. Current code does provide for fees that would be assessed on a vacant property for the length of time, or based on the length of time that remains vacant. It's something we've looked at and sort of tried to assess is whether our current fees are appropriate. Again, this goes back to what Barbara was describing, sort of that need to drive down the excess values of these properties. So this is a point where we explored some possibilities, something that we have in this current set of recommendations. Again, this is really not final. This is just something that we're exploring and want to bring before the council, is potentially assessing those fees based on the square footage of the property. Currently, it's essentially just a block fee, regardless of what the property is. If it's a small residential property, it's a small business, it's a large commercial property. We would have the same fee just based on the amount of time it's sitting vacant. The idea with this approach, again, we're still refining it, would be potentially have larger fees for these sort of large commercial properties, but then have it scaled back down if you're looking at a smaller business or a small residential property. But again, there's room for refinement, and throughout all this, what I really stress is just enforcement is going to be central.
It's a form-based fee code.
Something like that.
Yeah, there we go.
Form is definitely in there. But really, again, as Barbara said, this is going to be just an effort that requires a lot of buy-in, a lot of different areas of city government. We do have fees currently. So really, this is kind of an area that we want to look at once we figure out how we want to move forward with enforcement, see what the best way to proceed is. This is one option that we're considering, but again, it might not be the final one.
So I wanted to add that, this was last week or so, I circulated some thoughts to Andrea and Rennie. I don't know if those were passed along to you. But just thinking forward to hyper granular enforcement questions, I feel like code is only as good as the Excel spreadsheet that's used to track the steps within city government to keep up to date on what's happening on the ground. And so, so there were some sort of conversations about, okay, how are we tracking complaints or inspections or violations? And if you look at the proposed language, I mean, there's certain violations that are per day. Okay, well, that to me triggers the kind of need to create certain sort of spreadsheets and then maybe an automatic email going back to whomever, issued a violation, or maybe even to my office saying, check with buildings to see if anyone went back. So I think those sort of more granular types of issues are ones that would be great to bring Steve Knox into the conversation on. He and I had a really productive conversation this morning where he brought some new enforcement related ideas and concerns to mind. And so that's all part of sort of the ongoing discourse. But again, these two sets of code changes are where we think are the place to start for all of that.
And the changes you're proposing would be more likely to take some of these long time abandoned buildings, sort of get them back into circulation faster. Perhaps.
That is one goal. Definitely is one.
I have 3 properties for you. Yes. So been abandoned for a long time and need some help, so.
So this is, again, looking at the chair, kind of wishing Steve were here, but I think he will be next time we come to this conversation. But one of the hyper granular points was, okay, is there a way that we can better use the city's website, specifically the buildings department's page on that site, to aggregate complaints about the types of buildings that you're discussing? My sense is that, every now and again, I'm copied on an email from an older person to the buildings department. And that's great because, then I'm able to think about things that we can do to try to advance the ball, or even just pester and ask, okay, did this or that happen? But that doesn't seem like the right way to necessarily gather or maintain an accurate log of what either you all are seeing in your wards or what members of the public see in their neighborhoods and want to communicate. So some really simple ideas, you know, we maybe involve conversations with the buildings department and IT. There's a new portal, for example, for submitting information about related to building permits. Well, it seems like maybe that could be either expanded or, you know, just minor changes made to sort of gather information about complaints. There's another question about the 311 app. I don't have any information on how many service requests are made through that, but is there a way that that can become a better tool for addressing, you know, a safety concern that someone sees in their building that hasn't made it necessarily to one of you, or even the building department. So we've been keeping our list, and one of the reasons why we asked to table this last month is we're kind of doing our own reconnaissance, but that led to the proposed language you see here. It would be great to, you know, discuss that again with Steve present to see if he had any feedback before that moves to a vote, but we also wanted to get that conversation started.
Thank you.
That sounds great.
I'm wondering if we could do that at a caucus meeting to have a vote of you there, because then all 9 members of the council would be present.
All members of the council.
10.
All 9, all 10. All 9 voting members.
I'll be there. I mean, you know, if Steve can come, that's great. I'm usually there. Jonathan, definitely there.
That'd be great.
So let me pass it on. President, for emphasis.
That's all we've got.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I have complaints from residents, do I send them to you or to Steve? I'm meeting with Steve next week. I'll share that with you.
I think you should always send it to Steve, but I'm happy to be CC just because of their meals, so the other things we're working on.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Are you going to stay until the end of the meeting?
Yes.
Because I would like to have an attorney session.
Okay, next under old business is resolution 141 of 2023. And I just want to say, just for the record, that the intention on this resolution was never meant to remove any apprenticeship requirements from City of Kingston contracts. It was just that we were looking at some of the language that was added to the apprenticeship program last year based on some comments that we received. The laborers whom the change in language affects asked to come before the committee to have an equal time to discuss this before the council goes potentially for another vote. So thank you for coming, and I'm sorry for any perceived slight. So, okay, if you want to come up.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you very much for letting me speak. First, I'll start with, once again, I don't even know how we got here. Back in January, the same common council voted unanimously to pass the restructuring of the apprenticeship bill, or the law. We asked for the graduation rate, okay? It's not a heavy lift. If you have a bona fide program in New York State, you should be graduating apprentices. You shouldn't have just a pay-to-play program. You pay $10,000, you get to check the box, and you get to proceed. No apprentice is really on your job. And this is what's happening with the Merit Alliance, okay? So, we passed the same language in Ulster County with the legislature, 22-1. Okay, and that actually takes effect on January 1 of 2024. It's the same exact language. Okay, actually, I'm mistaken, right, Chris? The threshold there is $750,000 for the county because of the bigger scale projects. Okay, the Merit Alliance also showed up at that. They say it hurts small businesses. That's not true. I have contractors, okay, that only have 3 people. They're a part of my program. It doesn't hurt them. What it does is, it's here to train people and replace people that are coming out of the workforce like myself. They're here to replace me. And they're the best skilled, trained, certified people that I've ever seen. And I only run my program as the operating engineers local 825. The laborers run their program. The iron workers run their program. The tin knockers run the program. The plumbers run their own program. And they are responsible for training all their people for the future. And they graduate people. We don't see it as a heavy lift. 3 people is like nothing. You know, I mean, I know I currently just took 10 more apprentices in general. I take usually anywhere between 10 and 20 every year between both of my facilities, and we train them out. Currently, my retention rate is about 87%. My graduation percentage is about 97%. I've got some people that, once they go through the program a little bit, decide that they don't want to do this. I kind of don't blame them, you know, but it happens. But, you know, one of my big concerns here were, you know, we grabbed this email coming along just not too long ago prior to the last common council meeting, and this one came out of the American Alliance's program, and this was emailed to all the contractors, and which is fine. Come in, speak your piece, whatever you got to do. But some of the stuff that's concerning to me in this email is the direct implication into some of the departments here in the city of Kingston, which is like, it makes it very hard for me to come on board and thinking I have a relationship, okay? I live here in the city of Kingston all my life, okay? I'm a member of Local 825 for 38 years. I've been doing this job for 14 years. Prior to that, I was a head engineer running jobs of the magnitudes of the Tappan Zee Bridge, okay? But I thought I had a relationship here, working on something here. And it's very concerning to me thinking I'm batting my head against the wall when I get a memo from Penelope Hazer to everybody, and in it says, the City Laws and Rules Committee unanimously recommends the repeal. But rumor has it that there are others who will be in attendance to reject the repealing resolution. City officials in the engineering and DPW departments are supporting this resolution, but have no real voice in the matter. Well, my thought is, if you don't have any real voice in the matter, you shouldn't be speaking up. And that's a little concerning to me, as far as department heads go. And that makes it a little tough to do business here. And currently, we have opened an investigation on our own into this. I'm sure council already knows that we foiled one thing of phone records. I'll be following it up with several others because now they're implicated in this. And it's just wrong. It's just wrong. We just want to work. You know, we have local people that live here, have houses here, you know, trying to put their kids through college, trying to go on a decent vacation. We're just trying to work here. That's all we're trying to do. Now, I'll speak on behalf of my program itself. The operating engineers local 825 had 9,000 members active. In that 9,000 members, I invest in my apprenticeship program annually $2.2 million because it's big fun toys, you know, big pieces of equipment. You have to have the latest and best technology to train your people moving ahead. It costs money to do that. I have an open invitation to anyone on this council that ever wants to come to my school. I have one location is in New Hampton, New York, right in Middletown. State of the art, it's brand new. We built it 5 years ago. We moved it from a place nobody wanted to go. Okay, we moved it into town. Open invitation, you come there. I have, if it's raining, we bring guys inside and they put them on the simulators to train them. Training is constantly going. We are also moving ahead right now. In my other location in New Jersey, we're an accredited college course. You get an associate's degree when you get out. We're currently moving with that right now in New York State. We're all partnering up with BOCES, the high schools we're looking to recruit. We call it the new four-year, education, So, but on that, I see in this memo and it says, it's the same stuff for me. It's like Groundhog Day for me, this, okay? It says, it limits construction contract to only those contractors that have large apprenticeship programs. I was unaware that there were small ones. You either have a program or you don't have a program. You still need to graduate people. That's the determination there. The bottom line is, and I said it here last week, and I don't want to be redundant, but they'll distract you from the truth. Forget this, it hurts small business. It doesn't hurt small business. Once again, I have smaller contractors than what they're talking about. I have small contractors, doesn't hurt them at all. It's an apprenticeship program. They are 60, 70, 80% of journeymen. How does that hurt a contractor? I mean, that's winning the lottery. You're getting a guy out there that's going to do the work for a percentage way less. And to have that thrown out there, they kind of distract from the fact is they do not graduate anyone. I keep going back to that. It's a graduation rate. They don't do it. All right. It took us a while up in Ulster County. Okay. Kick it back to committee, kick it back to committee. And then everybody finally, we said, we don't understand what else you need to know. Here's our graduation rates. Here's theirs. And they look and they go, well, they don't graduate anymore. I go, thank you. But I'm here to ask that, that we terminate 141. I don't know what the exact terminology is here to do it, to kill it, I don't like the word indefinite postponement, I can tell you that much. I mean, I know I push.
Terminate with extreme prejudice.
You know what, Carl, that sounds great, okay?
I thought it would sound great too.
It's, once again, I push dirt for a living, that's what I do. I'm a bulldozer operator, okay? And, but, this is something I know about. My grandfather lived here all his life. My father lived here all his life. I'm here. My great-grandfather lived in Stone Ridge, okay? And this is what we do for a living. We're operating engineers. We're labor people. We just want to come to work, And this helps us and ensures a future. There's going to be a hole in the workforce, the labor workforce, of biblical proportions when I tell you. I think everybody knows how hard it is just to get somebody anywhere. Just call for a plumber in your house right now. Forget it. The guy's not coming for months. So once again, I don't want to kick a dead horse here. I could talk about life inside a golf ball for an hour and a half. I don't want to do that. Okay. The fact of the matter is, there's no proof that the current language doesn't work. Okay. This program that this law that's on here, it actually expands your pool of bidders. You get better pool of bidders coming to see you. A lot of times right now, from our contractors in the past, we don't want to come to Kingston to bid because we're not on the same playing field. We don't have an equal voice. And this law did that. Our first job that came out of the gate was Sterling Street up here. You went from where you averaged 2 bidders on a project like that to 14. Now, you get greater buying power with 14 contractors, okay? It's there. And the other thing that the city of Kingston also gets is all of us. We're all business reps for different trades. And what we do is we'll see these come, and we are on the phone to 30 of our contractors going, not asking them to go do it, pretty much telling them to go do it. This is their livelihood too. And you know what? It's a dual-edged sword because it also helps our membership. It grows our membership. It grows the apprenticeship program. It trains people. So,
Quick question. Do you have a steady pool of applicants who want to become apprentices and enter the program? Because given the difficulty in finding people to take jobs, I'm wondering if you're having similar problems finding recruits for careers.
So on mine is when I put it out there, we put it out there, we're pretty much black and white with it. We tell everybody, we'll be taking 10 applicants this year for apprentices, okay? And we may open it up maybe in October. We let everybody know. But for 10 applicants, usually have to show up, okay? And you have to get in line. And we have guys who monitor it. They give you a number, you put it in your pocket. There's 280 people out front of the building. You ready? It's first come, first serve how you get in line. We do it on purpose. We do it usually on Labor Day weekend to see who's really dedicated to wanting this job. Because these jobs are no joke. I mean, full benefit package. I mean, these young kids are gonna be millionaires. You know, it's crazy, you know, right? You never get rich digging a ditch. That went out the window, you know? So what they want to do is be a part of something structured with full benefits. They can have a family, they can grow in the area, they can buy a home, they can stay here. Now, like I said, 250 guys, and then we have to whittle it down to 10. But what we do is, I mean, I'm speaking for my program. When we get to the 50 mark, benchmark there, what we do is we take those last 50, we get it down to 10. And then if somebody's dropping out of the program or doesn't, they come to us and say, hey, I'm moving to Montana. We go, we understand. We go right to that pile. And we have a constant, steady flow. I've had people go, I've been waiting 5 years for this phone call. I go, good. Do I have to quit my job right away? I'd like to give my boss notice. I said, no, do the right thing. Give your boss some notice. You know?
So are those the same listings? I went to the Department of Labor website for apprentices and I saw 78 listings throughout the state and they were divided by region. And then most of them were like 10 or so, looking for 10 applicants within a time period. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, Chris, I won't try to explain the other trades, but.
Yeah, and I saw like a lot of,
Yeah.
Okay.
My program works the same way. We'll take 100 applicants for 10, that's 100 applications for 10 apprentices. And then we do the same thing. Once we choose those 10, we'll then rank the other 90 based on experience and, you know, so forth. And then we'll pick from that list as other ones drop off or graduate, we can pick from that list or need.
And there's no reason to believe that going forward, this situation is going to change. You see this as status quo for the foreseeable future.
Oh, absolutely. This is the way of the future for us.
So this is what we do.
You get to identify kids that, you know, aren't college kids, aren't college material. Believe it or not, a lot of kids from bad home upbringing with really no direction. Their first sign of direction is us. I mean, I interview kids and you get these kids here that they want an opportunity. And I picked some really good kids, and my son-in-law is a graduate of the apprentice program because when he asked me if you get in the laborers union, I said, absolutely, but you're going through that program. You're going to go through this and learn every single thing, and you're not going to do it off of my name, you're going to do it off of yours. And, you know, to Mike's point, we're all passionate about this program. This is a good thing for young people. And it dovetails perfectly with item 1 on your agenda. You'll have less foreclosures if we can educate and train these kids and give them jobs and let them live in this community and buy houses, because these kids start off as renters, but I'm telling you, they move right on to home buyers. They move right up to home buyers. They establish their credit. They really get a career. This is a career. This isn't a job. This is a career.
There's a project that's going to come. I mean, we all have projects around the area, right? But Syracuse is going to have that chip plant. It's a $125 billion project. You know, it's like, where are they getting? But the foundation is when they're going to come to the unions, because we can call out to other areas and the people know they're getting trained people. You're not just getting anybody to come in the door. You said somebody get a plumber. But you know what, if that person makes a cross connection, then you got problems. You know, it's like, there's reasons why. So people, these shops that are saying they have an apprenticeship program, what are they actually teaching? We're audited by the DOL every year. You know, so they're checking ours. Maybe these people tried to do an apprentice program and they failed miserably because we're scrutinizing. We've been doing it for a long time. You know, so we pretty much have a handle of it. We kind of criticize the DOL, why you keep breaking our chops and you're not breaking the chops of the other section. So we train safety. That's the number one thing for every local. We basically, and the kids who don't cut it, you know, they got to just get weeded out. You know, we're here for a career, not a job. It's not. We set people up for retirement, and we really don't ask the government for much. You know, we just ask for a level playing field. So if it's a prevailing wage job, we have an equal shot because the other side is cheating on a lot of that stuff. So we basically just do it so the membership can retire with dignity. And we supply our own benefits as far as pensions and everything else. So and the kids have a future, like I said, they will graduate or retire with $1 million because they have all these buckets. They have an annuity, they have an HRA, they have health care for their family. These are the things that the non-union company should be offering because it's a standard. And I talked to one guy, I'm just going to cut you off at this one. He's working for a non-union company down in his own. I said, how much are you making? He says, $30 an hour. I said, our first year apprentices are making $20 in the envelope and $20 in benefits. And there's a guy who's ready to take his journeyman certification card for Westchester. And his uncle's only paying him $30 an hour. How do you live on that? You know, you just multiply a 40-hour week, right? So there's a $1,200 check that this guy's, and he's not getting any health care, so he's gonna have to pay that on his own. And then all of a sudden, by the time you get down to your rent, gas, food, any of that stuff, what are you actually taking home? So yes, you could say the trades are making a lot of money, but this is what it took to get here. Each year, it's a 3%, 2% raise that you get. All our bills go up by that.
And just to be clear, when you say the other side, you mean non-union job?
That's it, yeah. Non-union sector. That is not us against them.
I mean, I'm just going to offer this sort of as a general background. I speak for myself. I don't know if I speak for my colleagues here, but it's like I'm learning a sport here, and I've never learned the rules, and I've never seen anybody play, right? So when you're coming in for an understanding, you seem totally credible. I believe it. But I feel like I'm being thrown in the middle of the field where I don't know what the other side's position is. If they came in, would I find them equally persuasive? Possibly. So I'm coming from a place of ignorance, and that makes it really hard for me to feel confident in any decision I make, right? And so I'm hoping that as we move forward, you can help me understand the rules of the game better and what this means, because honestly, I don't feel like I know enough to trust my own decision at this point.
My understanding was you had Penelope Hazer in here from the Merrill Alliance. This is how this fuse got ignited. You know, and she came in and all of a sudden it went, I don't know what was said in here, but it went repeal. You know, and we went.
I would like to offer the same thing, Mike, that we'd love to have in our training facility. I'm sorry, we'd invite you down to our training facility in Newburgh and give you the grand tour and while classes are going on, and you can see firsthand.
I don't need to see. What I need to do is understand the sort of the conceptual framework, like the whole graduation rate business. For example, it's like, why is this the bone of contention? And I don't understand why this is being put forward as the lever to move the law in one direction or another. And this is on me to educate myself. I'm not saying it's your job, but I'm just saying that, you know, my heart wants to really go on with you guys. My head is going, wait, how much do I actually know? Right?
Yeah.
And if you went to each local, because they'll throw the same offer out there, right, the Shino and Brewster, and you see what kind of money that we invest in our training program, and just see what we invest, what they invest. We do it as it's a serious business.
Yeah, I have no interest in repealing the apprenticeship. That's clear. That's not what I'm deliberating on, right? I'm deliberating on sort of a level of granularity next.
And you want to know something, Carl? One thing I can say is one of the big educational tools that we use to really bring people along. I lost kind of count how many legislators I brought down, you know? But I got to tell you, each time I brought somebody there, the same thing I got when they were leaving and we were in front of the building. They went, I never realized there's a school here. There's 20 instructors here every single day. There's $1 million worth of equipment and simulators. Everything has its movement. You know what it is? You're in construction college. That's where you are.
Right.
And it's a real thing. What I did after everybody left, I shook all their hands. I appreciated everyone coming to take a look at it. And then I said, what I would like, can I ask for you to do now, is to call up this and ask them to come see their facility where they train everyone in one place. And here's what I get for a reply. Well, we train your people on the computer. I went, what? How do you train somebody on a bulldozer or a backhoe or a dump truck on a computer? Well, we send them out in the field. I said, okay, so it should be easily ascertained. Show us the number of the people. Well, we're still waiting on those pieces of paper.
I tried to apply there as well, but.
You want to come?
No, I tried to apply. I went on the Merit website. I went to the Department of Labor and.
Oh, I thought you wanted to put your regular
No,
job.
yeah, I'm opposed. and
We
could not apply there, so there was no openings at this time.
In the broad scheme of things, it's a 30% graduation rate allowed to ask. I think it should be 100%. We hold our kids to a high
Yeah, it's
level,
less than
a
half.
high standard.
Right.
Yeah,
We want to hold them to the highest standard.
Way to push the high schools, right?
Yeah.
I actually don't have an issue with the graduation rate. I think that, that language was in the old Ulster County legislation from 2020 that I found. And I actually am okay with the language of, within the last, how many years?
They asked for us to be higher,
5 years.
have a higher number of the legislative end. You know what we told them? No. We said, we're good with 3. Here's what we're looking to do. We're not looking to get rid of competitive bids. We're looking for people to come up the rungs of the ladder and do the right thing by the program and graduate people. We don't care. We don't care tomorrow morning they start graduating people finally and putting them through a proper training school. Good for them. That's what they should be doing from square one. So far, since the inception of their business, they've had a body. Nobody's ever called them out on it. Okay? We, the Hudson Valley Building Trades, we take exception to that. We're doing the right thing every single day. Once again, the Department of Labor comes in every month and monitors our movement to make sure we're doing it. Now, I don't know what happens once you get north of Socrates. I can't even tell you. I don't know what happens up there.
It's easy to audit a legit program. Nobody's going to spend the time to try and audit a non-legit program.
So, once again, I respectfully ask that what was the terminology used there, Carl?
Terminate with extreme prejudice.
I don't know.
Apocalypse now.
I would respectfully ask that this committee considers that here.
Can I have some questions? So first off, the criteria for union programs and private programs is exactly the same, right? For graduation. That's set by the state.
By the hours.
Okay. And then both, doesn't matter whether it's union or private, they're both monitored and approved by the state?
I can't answer that question because I don't want to answer that because I'm afraid that I give that. I can tell you I'm monitored by the state. How's that?
All right, that's fine. And you said you have 97% graduation rate from your program at least. What about other programs?
I can't, we could go around the room.
Ours is pretty much the same. She got ours.
Ours, yeah, about 95.
Okay.
Well, the kids all know what they're gonna get into. They've worked we're a 5-year program. So they just keep on saying, hey, every year they get a little raise and they say they're realizing that they're learning and they got a career. And that's what they're there for.
And so you said those numbers, those graduation numbers are audited?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So is there a public place where we can go and see that, or can you supply that to us?
The DLO post individually.
Excuse me?
I don't know, the DLO post the individual graduation registration for each program.
I don't know. I know what I have going through my program and I've had some people ask me before to go, well, how do we know that's true? I go, well, I said, we can go to this program with this trainer and we can go that trainer. The DOL comes in. So I've never really, we post it. We post what's going on. We post the members. We post all their times. But once again, it's a 4-year program, for me to get through it.
Right. I thought you said that these numbers were audited. So that sounds like that there's some published numbers.
I've never been audited on anything on this, but DOL is in my training school once a month. A meeting with all the apprentices, sitting down and interviewing them, and the apprentices have to turn over their time book.
Right.
They have to turn all over the documentation to DOL and go, here you go.
Right.
So they're constantly doing it.
So what I hear you saying is that the incentive of apprenticeship programs for your organizations is that it brings in new members who are clearly trained, who have all the skills that they need. So when they're hired, an employer can be sure that they don't have to do further training.
No, they do not. Not on jobs.
Yeah.
No, when they get sent. So when we send an apprentice outside the door, We won't let him go to work anywhere if somebody calls for an apprentice. We may have them there, but we don't. And we can't release him yet. He hasn't completed his OSHA 30, his confined space, his certifications for end dump operator, forklift certifications. There's a barrage of that has to go through to begin with. Obviously we do the normal stuff. Everything's a drug testing with us. That is a constant. We don't care. We don't care if you got a medical marijuana card. You're not getting in a piece of equipment. We don't care what anybody says. You're not killing somebody. It's not gonna happen. But we have a whole list of stuff that is mandated before we release that guy. And our instructors, that's all they do every day. Somebody is handling one aspect of that, to push them out the door to get them out there. And then the funny thing about it is you've got some of these kids are sharp like that. And when I say kids, because when I'm in my union meetings, I'm looking out across the membership, I lean over to somebody, I go, I don't think that kid can even drive. I think he's 12. He looked 12 years old to me, but these kids, they're on their game. They show up, and Chris said it, this is a career. This is a career. They come there knowing. At 21 years old, they're not gonna go to college. They don't want to go to college. We got kids coming in 18, going, listen, I'm even spending a nickel in college. I don't have anything against it, but here I come.
You said the county passed exactly the same language?
750 was the raise in the bar on that though, on the threshold.
Instead of $100,000, it was $750,000?
750.
It was 500.
It was 5.
Because the one that I'm looking at here from the mayor says 100,000.
That is for the city. There's 2 in there, okay?
Yes,
one on.
That's the city.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you're saying that with the county.
County is at 750.
750,000.
That's correct.
All right. So, is that $100,000 that's here for the city, is that a hard number for you, or is that something that can be increased?
No, currently there's one other number that's in there at 350. We're not opposed to matching that up and having it 350 across the board. Currently, you've got building and renovations at 350 in the current language for the city of Kingston. I wouldn't say anybody here is stuck on 100,000 for the infrastructure work.
Okay, great. Another thing that I heard you saying is that you don't feel confident in the graduates of apprenticeship programs from private entities.
Correct.
Okay. And so, but the state doesn't like test people when they come out of these programs? There's no.
I couldn't answer.
There's no state qualification there?
I couldn't really answer that.
Okay.
All I can say is I know what they do with me, and I know what they do down here in the Hudson Valley. That's what I can say.
Well, if somebody's in that other program, right, a private program, they can't move on to being a journeyman, right, without graduating?
They wouldn't have to graduate. They have to get the numbers. I mean, if you turn around and it's 1,300 hours a year for 4 years, you got to hit that milestone to graduate. You can't just start a program tomorrow morning and say, you know what, the guy's been here a year, he looks pretty good, he passes. That's not the way it works. You have to achieve the hours. And that's the problem we have. When I tell you a retention or a graduation rate, you know, through the pandemic, when the pandemic was going on, it was very tough to do this, very tough to navigate. And what was happening there, we couldn't have classroom time. That really hurt us. So there was a lot of guys that were supposed to graduate, you know, in January or June of 2021 that had to wait it out and graduate in 2022 in the beginning of 23. And they had to they have to have the time. We really take this seriously. Classroom time is a big, big part of this. You know, you go on the field, you learn some bad habits once in a while. But when you get back into the the training instructors, they break you of those bad habits right away. And you need the classroom time. You need to be in there. So.
Does the classroom time come under the 1,300 hours, or is that separate?
No, I think everybody, Chris, what's yours?
Mine, I think it's a 400 classroom a year.
What's yours?
Everything else.
7 weeks, 40 hours, that's just the classroom. They go 7 weeks straight, all day.
It's different for each of us.
Okay.
And to Mike's point, my local's a heavy highway and building local. So we've had instances where I'll send an apprentice, first year apprentice out to a heavy highway contractor, and the guy's raving about it. I got to pull him from that contractor the second year because he's required to take building training as
That's the
well.
other thing we have to
So I can't just let him stay with that highway contractor for 5 years and graduate. The contractors go crazy. I mean, like, what are you doing? This kid's perfect. He's in my system now. I love him. He's great. It's great for you. I understand he's good at everything highway. But what if you don't have any work and I got to send him on a building job? I can't put him on scaffolding. I can't put him in a confined space. He doesn't have his environmental. So we even take that step to pull the kids away from that comfort zone and get them into this area over here so that they are well rounded.
What I can tell you is, I used to deal with Jane Thompson, who was running the apprenticeship program for New York State, and Roberta Reardon for Department of Labor. And Jane worked for Roberta. And Jane has now moved on, but it would be funny in my career, I would call the number and Jane would go, "Hello, Mike Ham." And I go, "Oh my gosh." She goes, "You're like on my number 10 list for phone calls." And I would call and we would have problems. Prior to a lot of this being handled this way, we would have problems with contractors lying and saying they were a part of the program. And then, my job is not to scrutinize the bid docs. And don't get me wrong, I do it. I get a bid doc, I'll rip it apart. There'll be something in there. And what it was is some of them were just so blatantly easy because you would go, they check the box. I know such and such company has never participated in a program, but they checked the box saying they were a part of this program. And then I would make the phone call and they'd go, and the state would go, "They're no part of our program." I go, "Thank you." We toss them. And, you shouldn't be rewarded for bad behavior. That's what it comes down to. And that's how this spurred for all of us. This has taken a whole different life.
Does anyone have any other questions?
I have maybe some clarification questions. First of all, my sense is that the whole highly structured apprentice program is really sort of across the board for the different union shops. So it's really a function of a union structure that these apprenticeship programs happen in the very coherent college environment that you're describing. Is that a fair summary? So the non-union shops can be said generally, you're speaking for them to have less structured approaches to this?
I would say that's a very correct statement.
The other thing is I'm starting to wrap my head around the confusion. I believe that when the request was lodged to repeal this, it was because we were told that the small contractors were getting screwed by this.
Yeah.
And so I thought, we don't want to screw the small contractors.
I agree.
I'll repeal it. We'll repeal it, right? And now I'm reframing this based on what you're saying. This is not about the little guy being screwed over. What drove those people who wanted to be repealed if it wasn't screwing over the little guy? I'm asking you to speak not for yourself.
I know. I'll comment on that though, because I would safely say that if you were getting $10,000 for every contractor that you signed up in a program, okay? Legit, non-legit, not performing the proper way. And then all of a sudden, somebody came in to take that away from you. Wouldn't you be fighting it tooth and nail? That's your livelihood. You got to fight that. And that's what I feel is going on with this.
So this is not about protecting the little guy. It's about covering for the shady operators, honestly, is what I'm hearing you say.
I'd say the program in general. Yeah, the shady program in general. That's what I would say. Once again, you got to hold me at a point that I am a bulldozer operator, okay?
bulldoze away, bulldoze away, I can take it. Yeah, I'm just wondering if those people came in, what they would be saying in defense of it.
I tell you what, wouldn't be the first time I was in the same exact room, sitting straight across the table, and it does not bother me one bit. You know, there's a lot to be said about being the most honest guy in the room, no repercussions, you know? So I don't have an issue with it. And people can call me out on it, and I say, okay, let's go do it.
I hope you don't think I'm calling you out.
No, not at all. I don't mean that. I don't mean that at all.
I will say, like I said, the last time we were here, we held an apprentice competition out at Union Hall for New York State. And then when they finish there, whoever the winners are, they go to Connecticut, and that's a regional. And right now, this week, they're competing, whoever the winners were in the regional, inside of Ann Arbor, Michigan, for the whole nation, and including Canada. So that's how big this thing is with us. Like Mike says, he's doing 2 million, we're doing 1 million. Everybody else is probably over $1 million. So with a small contractor, whoever they are, and they say they have somebody, they're teaching somebody because that person's growing in their company. But are they teaching them the right way and in depth, like Chris said over there? It's like he's taking them out and making them a well-rounded person. So the next thing you know, you have somebody who knows how to solder. Are they tackling a boiler because they watched it or they YouTubed it? And that boiler can blow up. You know, so we teach just the safety and the theories behind everything. BOCES came down, like I said before, they came down to that apprentice competition. We had 2 busloads of the kids who were doing the HVAC. They enjoyed that. You know, when we have the competition next year in, I believe it was May, or we'll invite you guys down if you want to see these kids just going to rock and roll. One guy videotaped it. I'd like to get that. Maybe I'll send it up to you so you don't have to go down. You can actually see them all working. They're roughing the bathroom, the rigging, proper rigging, and so nobody got hurt, pinch points, all this other stuff. You teach all that. There was the HVAC guys, the sprinkler fitters were doing their stuff. So it was very involved, and it's basically they do everything in a day, and then they break everything down. So 1 day setting up, so it's a 3-day process.
So
I'm still confused, but good for now.
I just have one question. In your comprehensive program, how many trades do the apprentices rotate through? Like how many different programs?
My trade, they are just operating engineers.
Okay.
Chris's trade, they're just laborers.
No, 7. There are 7 trades.
But everybody has their own respective field that they train their people in. They come to them for that reason. You know,
everybody has a jurisdiction.
Right.
But we all get along, we all work together on the field, so it's good. There's harmony on every job, so it's good.
Again, it's specializing, you know, so you have that person.
You want to come to the training center?
No, thanks.
You don't want to come in?
I spend all my time in schools.
You don't want to do it, huh? Kathy Nolan came. You know Kathy, right? Kathy came, and when she got there, she went, wow. And I go, let's go. And we ran her through, we put her on simulators, on the excavator, on the crane, how to run the crane. She was better than one kid that was in there on the crane on the simulator, it was funny. So then we took her outside the field and we put her live on an excavator and we had her baling stone, you know, and she was digging stuff. But, you know, one by one, everybody, you know, everybody started going to me, I want to come, I want to come, I want to come. I think the last guy I brought down there was Phil Erner. Yeah, Phil goes, he goes, Mike, I want to go. He says, man, I got to take a bus there. And I went, no, let me come get you, you know, but I met him there. You know, I met him right there and he went over. And once again, same process, you know, but I always, our door is open all the time. There's total transparency every single day there. You know, this is what we do. You know, we train people and once again, and my contractors are not, don't get me wrong, we have very major players in the game with a lot of guys. Sure we do. We have them from there all the way to 3 people, you know? And logistically, it just so happens 8, 9, 10 of the contractors with 3 to 4 to 5 people that work for them, and not all the time, mind you, okay? They happen to be in the Ulster County region, and they bid the jobs in this area also. I mean, they bid all over the place. They travel, they don't care. And when I say 4 to 5 guys, here's the other thing. In the Union Hall, You know, some people will keep key men, okay? In my business, in the operating engineer business, it's a revolving door. When you finish up with that operator for 25 weeks on the job and you run out of work for him, you send him back to me. You don't hold on to him and keep paying, you know, even though you have work. You send him back to us. We take that guy and we send him over to contractor C, and he starts all over again. And that's the cycle, you know? So I guess it's safe to say all our contractors are small because they don't have anybody. They keep sending them back to the union hall. No, that's not true. But
Again, I hear what you're saying.
yeah,
Okay, so, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Great education.
Thank you very much. Thank you for, if you have a, I'll give it to Mike, I'll send it to Mike, and then Mike can send me the video once I get it.
Oh, that'd be great.
You guys could vote on that?
We have to go to attorney client session first.
That, are we committed to voting on this tonight, or is that, or we might not? No, okay.
That's how the motion is second.
So I'd like to make a motion to go into attorney. No, no,
We just need to.
just to clear the room, sorry.
Can you just clear out?
Yeah, it's a private conversation.
You get to go home.
So,
We'll stick around, see what the outcome. Thank you, guys.
An outcome, building we can.
Thanks for the heads up.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
And while we're on, yeah, there we go.
challenge that I've faced in
In your entire tenure here.
my extended 18 months.
Not the disposition of ashes, that was one of the most riveting conversations.
I didn't say riveting, it was fascinating, it was elusive, I think. Can I make a motion to adjourn?
And
I
just wanted to mention that we will, based on conversations with Corporation Council, we're going to, keep this, tabled next week.
Thank you. Thanks.
Motion to adjourn. Second,
I'll second. Oh,
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm just waiting for that, nobody seconds the motion to adjourn. What happened?
You just leave.
Okay.
I've never heard anything like that.
Thank you, everybody. Again, apologies for being late.
Nice to see you, Carl.
Likewise, then. You're getting some more stuff.
Have a good night, all.
Thank you.
With the voices come out. Yeah.